you have anything to say?
I do have an opener today.
Go. Lay it on me.
So today was a very exciting day because today is Newly Box arrival day for me. And if y'all don't know what Newly is, I'm going to actually pass it to Mel because she put me on to Newly, N-U-U-L-Y.
Yeah, so Newly is, it's like we're sponsored. Newly is a monthly box. It's like a rental clothing box, and it has like all these different brands like Anthropology and like Maxwell and like all these like kind of like name-ish brands that people are interested in, Free People.
Like if you ever been to the store and like loved a dress and then saw that it was $500, this box might be for you because like you could rent that dress for a month. And then,
so it's like $100 and you get 6 pieces of clothing. And after 30 days, you return the box and you get to pick new 6 pieces.
Yeah, so I just got my first. It was very exciting. You like do like a little fashion show for yourself. It's like Christmas.
It's a gift to yourself.
Yeah, it's like you just went on a shopping spree without all like the drama of actually going to the mall. But it reminded me of this one time you and I had like a back and forth. I was on the Newly app, like scrolling through pictures, looking at reviews, and my husband looks over at me and he's like, "What are you doing?" Like at first I thought you were on like a dating website, but it looks like you're on like
you're like swiping the clothes.
Exactly.
Like, do I like it left? Do I like it
right? And he was like, "But it looks like you're like dating clothing," and I'm like, "That's literally what Newly is."
That's a really good description of it.
It was, and you and I told you about it, and you laughed, and like we kind of gone back and forth on tips that actual dating sites can take from Newly, and that we should open up a avenue for date like reviewers. And so like whenever you go on a date, you can like review the dude, and you could be like, "Oh, didn't take the bill, took the bill, wasn't the right fit, was the right fit." And then so when you're actually on a dating site, you can look at these reviews on the dude before you decide to go on the date with him.
So this was like 10 years ago, but there was an app, or maybe it was a website. It was like reviewyourdate.com.
Oh, there was?
Yes, it was. And it was incredibly controversial because it was just men. And it was like men in Astoria. Like, because you put like your zip code in.
Okay.
And it was like wherever there was like young people that congregated to this area. Like, you know, like Astoria is a very young person neighborhood. Right. So like people kind of date the same people yada yada. So it was like a very flimsy website. Like, I don't know who created it, but they had a bunch of like criterias, like, were they cheap? Like, rate them from like 1 to 5 stars. Like, how were they in bed? Stuff like that.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Yeah, and like, I kind of felt, because it was only guys. And even like, I'm like very feminist. I was like, even that seems a little dirty.
Like,
for, like
objectifying these men.
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, like, so on that note, okay, yeah, you could dish it and review them, but are you willing to get reviewed?
No.
And then you don't have access to these reviews. All these people are just reading, like, basically people
seem
talking shit about you. Yeah, okay. I take it back.
Scrap it.
just rewind all of that.
So you want something to talk about?
I thought you were just going to start the cast.
Hi everyone, I'm Melanie.
And I'm Diana.
And we're 2 queens in a pod.
Cast. And we are 2 queens from Queens, giving you the Queen's perspective. And today we are going back in time close to 40 years ago to the
Almost 40. Yeah.
Almost 40. To the 1986 World Series.
Yeah.
Exciting time. And I would say a lot of our research was based and is based on the ESPN 30 for 30 documentary.
Directed by Nick Davis, Once Upon a Time in Queens.
Yes, Once Upon a Time in Queens.
What is 30 by 30? 30 on 30?
30 for 30?
30 for 30? What does that mean?
It's just like an ESPN
like
documentary series. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The exact meaning behind the name, I couldn't tell you. 30 for 30.
Because I'm like, it's not 30 minutes long.
I know, that's what I was going to think. It's like 30-minute episodes, but it's not.
No, it's not.
It was like 4 51-minute episodes.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll get back to you on that, or if you know, then good for you.
Well, I guess what I want to say is, before watching this documentary, my impression of the 1986 Mets were that they were just a bunch of misfits and they turned their season around. And I was so wrong. Like, that was not at all the case. Like, they were, like, seeded number 1 to, like, win everything. And I was like, oh, well, I thought this was an underdog story.
I think you're thinking of the 69 Mets. They were the Miracle Mets.
Oh,
they're
right.
the ones.
And what was this one? Like the Amazing Mets? Like what was their?
We may have been the Amazons. Yeah, the Amazons. Yeah, that sounds right.
I think they had a lot of slogans.
There was a lot of slogans.
Like they were just like throwing them out marketing-wise.
Exactly. I mean, I think we refer to, our era of like early 2000 Mets as the Amazons as well. So I think once a name gets dropped, it like sticks depending on the vibe of the moment.
So this was the Mets' 25th season in the National League.
Yeah.
The franchise it was a franchise record of 108 wins and 54 losses. Like that was their rank. What is it? What's like the end?
Their standing.
Their ending standing, which seems pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
I guess they have not made it to 108 since then.
That might be true.
Yeah, I guess that's what franchise record means, right? Like
yes.
Yeah.
So ever since we were in existence, that's the best.
And they were 21 and a half games in front of the Phillies, like when they clinched. That was so crazy.
That must be so nice. Like to not, because like so much of our experience with the Mets, our living experience with the Mets is that like they win the wild card.
Yeah, coming down to the wire.
Yeah, they win the wild card, and then they get a chance to win the division, But this was like, they were just coasted at this point.
Yeah.
And like, the development of the team, and we're not going to get too far into like the pre-86 Mets, but I think it's important to say that after the 69 Mets, like there was a lull and like a drop in the Mets franchise.
It's so funny because they like the first episode is kind of building or like finding out what happened to the team after 1969 and the team building to the team that it is in 1986. And so like in 1986, since everyone was like, oh, they're gonna win this year, like whatever, a lot like. In the Once Upon a Time in Queens documentary, there's like people that are like, we waited 13 years, like, like not that long. And I'm like, we've waited 39 years, like at this point. If there's anything you could say about a Mets fan, it's we are patient. And
we are committed.
We're committed.
We are committed, and we love them even though they haven't given us a World Series in our lifetime.
Yeah.
But I feel like let's see what happens. But essentially, the team leading up to 86 really started getting built in like the early 80s, and that was when this guy Cashin came into the mix.
The bow tie guy.
Yeah. He was an owner, I would say reminds me a bit of our current owner, Steve Cohen, who really wants to drop some money, build up the team.
What was he called? He was called No.
Are you thinking of someone before Cashin?
I was trying to think. Yeah, I guess he's the owner. Yeah. But they had a different name for him. But is that what you call that?
What?
I said I know he's the owner, but is that what they call him? Like, isn't there another name for it?
I don't know. There's like the general manager who is Davey Johnson.
Yeah, but he manages the team.
Yeah.
But the owner, I thought that he was called something like specific. But all right, just go on. Well, stop looking at me.
I thought you were gonna say something about him.
I just told you I don't know what his name was. I was looking at you and you didn't know. So let's move on.
So yeah, he's building up the team, and at this point, like I think some notable players that really made the team who they are Dwight Gooden, who is a baby. He's like 19 years old, part of the farm team. One of those pitchers that just like comes around like once in a lifetime.
Yeah, and if you are an historian, you go to Murphy's Bar, which is like the Mets bar.
Yeah,
they had him last year. Like they had a meet and greet with him, and that was like pretty cool,
pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And then this was interesting too in terms of just like doing a little background talk on the building of the team and some of the introductions of our players. Hernandez, who we all know is. Like still so connected to the Mets. Keith Hernandez. Interestingly enough, how interesting did you think it was? He gets put onto the Mets, and then is like not sure if he wants to stay. Like he was like very much on the cusp of like, should I stay? Should I go for the Mets? Like imagine. Like, you're one decision away from winning a World Series as a player.
Well, it seemed like he was on a winning team already.
He was on the Cardinals,
which were, like, winning.
Yeah.
Were, like, a good team. So
They may have just won the World Series.
You're making, like, a jump to, like, something that might be not.
No, but the manager of his team traded him. And so he was in this moratorium period of, like, he could have stayed on the Mets or he could have signed a deal or, like, looked for other teams.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying you're already in, like, in a scenario where you're not really sure of like what the future is for that franchise.
That's true. But that's like with any team. Like you don't really know.
Why are you asking me this question?
I just am telling you to like put yourself in a position of like how interesting is that you're one decision away, like in an alternate reality, Keith Hernandez leaves the Mets, misses out on the 86, or the 86 Mets don't even win.
Yeah.
Anyways, clearly you're not finding this enthralling, so we'll go to the next thing.
I think, like, in the general scheme of things, like, you can't, like, get bogged down on, like, if I left 5 minutes later and caught that train, maybe I wouldn't have been, like, maybe that train wouldn't have derailed and I died. Like, that's any scenario. I don't know if we have to, like, limit it to Keith Hernandez joining the Mets.
It's just something
I guess you're saying that it is interesting, but then by it being so universal, it becomes less interesting, I feel like, for me.
Okay, that's fair. Okay. I'll accept that as a response. All right, so most of my...
you didn't name the other main characters in this.
Oh, we have Dykstra, we got McDowell, we got Mitchell, we got...
Gary Carter, Darryl Strawberry,
Mookie Wilson, Ron Darling,
and one of the most interesting documentary heads, Lenny... How do you say his last name?
Dykstra.
Oh my God, that guy's a mess.
What a character.
Oh man.
He's pretty funny.
I really hope he gets help that he needs.
I think he got some help. Okay. I think he did. He's like sober now, but I think he may have done a little damage.
Yeah, he did a little damage.
On the way to sobriety.
Yeah.
But
some things aren't reversed, you know?
Don't do drugs, kids. If we can tell anything about the 86 Mets, don't do drugs.
I think I was going to say, like, the two things coming out of watching this documentary was, one, that they were already a good team, and I didn't think that. I thought they were, like, the underdogs. And two, like, there's a lot of drugs. A lot of people doing drugs.
They were very much a representation of their time and place. Like, if you think about New York in the 80s, like, drugs were crazy, crime was high, and in some ways... Our New York team was a reflection of what was going on in the city they were in to an extent. But they were this kind of silver lining in all of it, you know? Yeah. Like, it was a different time to be alive. It's like nothing... Like, comparing that to now, no way.
Yeah.
Like, we have, like, holistic medicines. We have people who come in and, like, meditate with our players. Like, it's very different now. Mm-hmm. But on that note, I'm going to bring it, the first main thing I have, like, in terms of going back to the idea that the Mets were a reflection of New York City, how the fans reacted to them clinching the division was very much a representation of what was going on in the city. Our fans demolished Shea Stadium. They were ripping up
grass and taking the grass, and then they were trying to steal the home plate.
Yeah, so right when the Mets won against the Cubs.
It would look like a mess.
For the
would you have jumped on the field?
You know, like, I would say no, but then I've also done research and readings.
You're like, I've also jumped on a couple of fields before, so, like...
No, I've just done research and know about, I do, like, psychological phenomenon, like, groupthink mentality, and in the moment, you're probably, like, on such a rush, like, who knows? It's like, well, everyone's doing it. But I just, like...
I think I'm very turned off by violence, and even though it wasn't violent, that would have been such, like, I would have been too scared. Like, I would have been like, I'm not going over there with, like, all these, like, wild, crazy men. Like, I'm not know what the hell's going to happen to me.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely would not be on that field.
Right. 100%. Like, at my high school...
I'll be, like, in the back watching, but I wouldn't jump on the field.
At my middle school dances, there was mosh pit sessions, and I definitely avoided those.
Yeah.
If that's a reflection...
If you didn't go in the mosh pit, you were definitely not going to storm the field.
Right. And I think, like, we all know baseball players can steal bases. Fans literally stole home plate.
Yeah.
Like, ripping it up from, like, the concrete that it was, like, in. It was crazy. It was nuts. And so, starting with our division champs, beating the Cubs. And then they went into their National League championships against the Astros.
Yeah, that was, like, kind of part of the documentary, like, facing the Astros and... Mike Scott, who was, like, this pitcher who...
Actually used to be on the Mets.
Well, and then... But his whole storyline was, like, him cheating and doing a couple of things. One of them was, like, sandpapering the balls or whatever. But then I'm like, all right, everyone else was on cocaine. So, like, how much are we comparing, like, these cheating methods? You know what I mean?
I mean, I think...
Like, I don't think they should have went, like... Been, like, that's the reason we're playing so bad. You know?
I think, though, like, to their credit, all right, you're doing drugs, you're drinking the night before. That's not
Like,
necessarily
'cause I'm trying to
performance
think of-
enhancement drugs. If
Yeah.
anything, that could like mess you up in the game.
Like,
but
who was the one that was most, like, more recent? Like, I feel like there's always, like, a lot of controversy around pitchers because of different things that they were doing. And who was the one who had, like, sticky fingers or, like, sticky glove, whatever it was?
I know exactly
that was,
what
like, pretty
you're talking
recent.
about. Yeah, but, like, I kind of would be pissed off. Like, if like, Doc Gooden said he was looking at the ball and he saw, like, scuff marks on it. And, like, if you know how to work in that cheating kind of way, you really could pitch the ball and, like, make it do something that makes it more aerodynamic and
like,
really
they're
mess
used
up.
to, like, hitting a ball in the way that it's standard.
Yeah. And, like, in baseball, the likelihood of hitting a ball is just so hard already. So I kind of got it. And, like, I just think, like, beyond all odds. Like, they love, those are the two games.
Interesting where baseball players can know how to bat depending on the pitch. So, like, if they throw a curveball, like, you, like, put your body this way. And, like, I played softball for, like, 1 year when I was 9, and I was just swinging. You know, like, I thought that was what you do. You just
close your eyes
and swing and, like,
best.
hope you hit it. But, like, that's not how that works.
No, it's so calculated.
Yeah, it's so calculated.
I actually think something is to be said about them talking about Mike Scott, because those two games, game 1 and game 4, were the only games they lost against the Astros.
And it was,
it was him. Yeah. So, but needless to say, the Mets won.
They did. And then they moved forward.
They won in 6, and they won. It took them 16 innings in that game to finally win.
Yeah.
That was like the never-ending game.
Yeah.
So really cool.
Do you think they cut people off back then, too, at the 7th inning? Do you think that was always a thing?
What do you mean, like they got rid of the pitcher?
No, they like cut you off alcohol-wise.
Huh.
I mean, remember we were talking about this, where like recently the Mets went to like the 15th inning, the fireworks night. That was recent, like 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, like the thing that kind of like keeps me going in a game to like stay like involved would be to drink,
right,
and then you cut that off, and then you're getting hungover like as the innings go on because you're not drinking. Like that seems awful.
I mean, if the times were,
I'll probably fall asleep in the seat.
Not at a playoff game.
No.
Not at a playoff game, man. You're staying up. You're staying there. Well, but I don't know about the cutoff.
So I guess you're right. It didn't really matter.
Maybe they reopened it like at the 10th or 11th. They're like, all right, let the people drink.
I don't know.
Who knows? Question, yeah. Good questions. These are good questions that they don't necessarily highlight when they discuss the player's perspective. Yeah. See, that's like the fans' perspective. Are you ready to move on to the actual?
Are we doing
World
the most
Series?
Important game in baseball history?
You want to skip to Game 6?
Yeah. Oh, what's your other? You want to talk about every game?
No, I was just gonna like lay it down. Like Game 1, Red Sox win at Shea, and it was like
Red Sox
first
win at Shea.
Shea,
and everyone's like, "Oh,
this sucks," you know. And then Red Sox the Red Sox win again on Game 2 at Shea on our home property, on our home ground, which probably does not feel good. Then we go over to Game 3, and Dykstra gets a home run and like kind of just starts this rally, and everyone just starts like hitting that ball, and it really did change that energy from the 2 L's in Game 1 and 2. Kind of gave a little bit of more spirit, and the Mets win the
Game 3
at Fenway at Game 3 on Game 3. Same happens Game 4. They're demolishing Fenway right now at this point, and then Game 5 it gets a little spotty again. Dwight Gooden is a little off. Boston fans are bullying Strawberry, kind of taunting him, and the Red Sox win that game on Game 5, which brings us to Game 6. At this point, it is sudden death for the Mets. The Mets have to win every single game.
Yeah, this is the whole kit and caboodle.
Starting Game 6. And Game 6, like you're saying, how you reflect on this game, whether you're a Mets fan or a Sox fan, is night and day. Night and day, my friends.
All right, so paint us the picture.
So a skydiver lands at Shea to start off the game.
And it wasn't planned.
Was not planned.
Yeah.
He was not hired by the Mets franchise to do this.
It is wild. Like a lot of people are like, that could never happen today, and like literally could never happen.
No,
like literally
never could happen. This is pre 9/11. People were just doing whatever.
You had to, like, someone had to man that plane that he was on. You know what I mean?
Near LaGuardia Airport.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just have a random, like, passenger private plane
It
flying
reminds
around.
me of, like, nowadays where, like, there's, like, no communication at, like, Newark. And you're like, where's this, like, random plane in the sky? And they're like, we don't know. We have no idea. Just let it go.
Let him go. He seems to be harmless. But, you know, it was kind of funny. It was just so amazing that it happened, that he was arrested and everything. What he did was completely illegal, but people at Shea were sort of like,
yeah, like
they
it
were
was
cheering
the
him.
motivation, like, boosted for that.
This
from
kind
that
of
guy.
like anything can happen kind of energy was laid out.
Okay, so we're in the bottom of the 8th. This is like when the magic happens.
Yeah, the Sox are leading. And people say this is arguably the most mismanaged, worst managed game in baseball on the Sox
both
end.
sides. Oh.
I got that it was on the Sox end of
Okay.
things. Because at this point, Roger Clemens is pitching. He's doing an amazing job. The Sox are ahead. And for whatever reason, the manager of the Sox decides to take him out. And once that happened, the Mets tied. Then Boston leads. So it goes into extra innings. Now we're at the bottom of the 10th.
I have like a really funny Roger Clemens one from the documentary, and I can't remember if it was the 8th inning or if it was the 10th inning, but when they took him out, he went and showered and shaved his like beard, like his World Series beard, because he wanted to be like photographed like clean cut. And I was just thinking, what a stupid decision. Like, who does that before you actually win the game? Like, superstitious aside, like, how would you jinx your team like that? Like, I honestly think it's his fault. Like, I think he jinxed the team for doing that.
You know what? I think you changed the mojo.
You win.
And also, another thing, though, that was happening as well in the background is currently all staff of Shea Stadium is setting up champagne. They're setting up all the stuff in the Red Sox
because they think they're
locker
gonna win.
room.
Yeah.
Because it was like the writing was on the wall, like, unless a miracle happened, like, they didn't see it happening. And yeah, I do think at that point, like, you should just stay exactly where you are.
There's like 2 really big moments. So this is the 8th inning. They tie up the game.
And Clemens is pulled out.
And Clemens pulled out.
Yeah.
The Mets tie up the game. And then the second big moment is the bottom of the 10th.
Because...
Right? Is it the bottom of the 10th?
Who's
the one that, like...
So, on the top of the 10th, the Boston starts to lead.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
They take the lead.
They take the lead to 5-3. And they're like, we got this in the bag.
And
like,
this is when when he's shaving his beard. This is when Clemens is shaving his beard.
They're, like, getting ready to win.
Yeah.
There's 2 outs on the Mets. Like, they only have 1 out until they win the World Series.
Yeah.
It's 5-3 Boston.
Right. And so now we get all the way down to there's 1 out away at this point. So there's...
That's what I just
said. So there's 2 outs. Is that? I think you said there was 3 outs away.
There's 2 outs. There's 1 away.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was reading while you talked. I wasn't listening. I apologize. And so Gary Carter's at bat. And at this point, like, when you're watching the documentary, each player's like, I didn't want to be the one to get the out.
They like all said the same thing to the first base coach. Like, I didn't want to be the one that get the World Series out.
Yeah, so they, like, you could just tell, like, they just wanted to win. No one wanted to be the reason that this season was ending for the Mets. And so Gary Carter's at bat. He actually sees on, like, the big scoreboard, congrats Red Sox by mistake. Yeah. Like, I guess there was a glitch and they pressed it earlier.
Like, settle down. You know what I mean?
And this is at Shea. Like, why are you all in such a rush?
Like,
come on.
Settle down scoreboard. Settle down text in the back.
But like, it's like jinx after jinx after jinx. And like, okay, like when we talk about, we're giving you the history from the victors.
Yeah.
On the Boston Red Sox side of things, like, this is like the Bambino curse just manifesting and like popping up. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they were very far away from. They needed this to break their Bambino curse, and like him shaving his beard, Clemens getting pulled out.
They're feeding the curse.
Yeah, the curse is getting fed.
Yeah.
Thank
it's
God.
Like when you're a kid and you like have a sleepover and you play like what do you do in the mirror? Like, who do you say in the mirror?
Bloody Mary.
You say like Bloody Mary 3 times. Like, they were just like you were just like asking for something that happened.
Asking for it.
Yeah.
Shout out to the great Bambino.
Okay, so Carter goes up.
He gets a single.
He gets a single. Kevin Mitchell goes up. He gets a single.
Yep.
And then Knight comes up, and he brings
Carter home.
Yeah, he brings Carter home.
Yeah. So Knight brings Carter home, and now Mookie Wilson has the longest at bat in history. Not really. I'm sure it felt that way. I bet you it felt like a decade.
Yeah.
Him at bat. So Mookie Wilson's at bat.
And in like the documentary, it's just him swinging and swinging. I was like, all right, they could have cut a lot of this.
I know, but it's the suspense,
I know.
And so there's a wild pitch, which actually brings Mitchell home. And now
we're tied up.
We're tied up. Mookie's
5-5.
still at bat. Mm-hmm. And this is the infamous Billy Buckner right between the legs hit. He hits the ball.
Can you imagine if this was Game 7? Like,
no, I could not imagine that.
That would have been crazy.
That's amazing.
I
crazy.
think it honestly means more that it was Game 6 because
it's like it
wasn't the end. There was still like another game they had to win. You know what I mean?
Right, and we didn't win on an error. We won on like our own good graces and our own skills.
Well, we did win on an error. It was not on our error. Going through his legs is kind of an error, no?
Yeah, but that's Game 6.
Oh, you mean
we didn't win the World Series on an error?
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So we win, and I mean I don't know.
It goes through his legs. I don't think you said that.
It goes right between his legs.
Billy Buckner.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't know what the Billy Buckner situation is, I don't know who you are.
You know what's funny is like I was reading a little bit more about this like separately, and apparently like all baseball players, they're all just like crazy in ailments. Like everybody's injured at all times. Like. And they're just, like, shooting up, like, cortisone shots to, like, make themselves go. So apparently he had, like, really bad knees and ankles.
Mookie did?
No, Buckner did. So, like, he kind of tried to... The way that he did it was because he knew Mookie was going to run so fast. So he kind of tried to cut him off. And that, like, gave his perspective... his perspective was off because of the way that he tried to get Mookie out.
Got it.
Yeah. Or so he claims. I don't know. He probably just messed up, and that's what he's blaming it on.
Yeah, well, Buckner, like, after this game, like, he couldn't step foot in Boston. Like, his career was over. I don't think he could step foot
anywhere. Like, that seems like the worst moment of his life.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't think he could come back from that.
And then, but you know what's, like, honestly so wild is everything leading up to the game with, like, the mismanagement of, like, the pitching and, like, all that stuff, like... All of that kind of gets erased until the last moment, like the last thing, like all these people, all the batters, they didn't want to be the last out because if they were, they would be the one that's talked about.
Yeah.
The only reason he's talked about is because he was the last person to make the mistake.
Right.
So that's sad.
But it was like one or the other. It was either going to be a Met or it was either going to be a Buckner. You know what I mean? Right. Like we all remember Beltran at bat at the end of.
Yeah.
Okay, no one wanted to be a Beltran in that moment.
No one wants to be a poor Beltran.
All right, let's move on.
Let's move on.
We're going to get to the sad stuff now.
Okay, so it goes through his legs, and we win Game 6.
We win Game 6. Yeah.
And the people are taking all of the stuff they put in the Boston Red Sox, and they all have to move it out because they had the World Series stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's great.
Really
I thought something that was also really interesting was when they were 2 outs in the bottom of the 10th, Keith Hernandez took off all of his uniform, and was like drinking a beer in the back clubhouse. Because he thought it was over. And he says like that he regrets that to this day. And I'm like, what a baby. But like nowadays, can you just leave the dugout? Like, can you just like be mad and leave?
I mean, yeah, there's no guard at the tunnel being like, you're not allowed to.
But wouldn't you be mad if your team just like ends up, like a player just ends up leaving?
Sometimes you just gotta cool off in the dugout,
right.
You know? Or for the Mets at the time, they did other stuff in the dugout in between
the locker room.
Oh, he didn't leave the locker room.
He left the locker room. Yeah. He said he left the dugout.
Yeah.
All right, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever, that's fine.
And I feel like, I don't know about you, but should we pass the mic to my uncle who was at Game 7 to give a rundown of Game 7?
Yeah, we can.
All right, so yeah, my dad and my uncle, lifelong Mets fans, or Mets fans since '62, since they were around, and they were both at Game 2 and Game 7 of the 1986 World Series. Did they
have they bought tickets? Like, because they ended up being season ticket holders.
They were
Were there season ticket holders back then?
They were season ticket holders that year.
Okay.
Before they had both of them. But before my dad had both my sister and I, he had a little extra cash to spare.
Yeah.
And so they had season ticket holders.
And you get specific games in your season.
You get first pick. They hit you up and be like, hey, you want tickets to the World Series? And then you get first pick to buy them. And so, yeah, let me pass it to my Uncle Kevin. Here we go.
This is Game 7.
We're at a family event, so.
So, we went to Game 7, and of course, coming out of Game 6 with the comeback, which was so amazing. We go to Game 7, and in the first 3 innings, Ron Darling gives up 3 runs. It was a real downer. He really kind of felt it, or I felt it. But then, in the 5th or 6th inning, Sid Fernandez comes in and just blows the Red Sox away. 3 straight strikeouts. And you just felt something was happening. Then they put on the song, "We Will Rock You," and it just rocked. And then Keith Hernandez comes up and hits a double or a single, and they were just on their way. And you knew that it was over at that point. And Strawberry with a home run puts him ahead. It was an amazing, amazing time. Great Game 7. And like we always talk about, how many people go to a Game 7? How many teams win a Game 7 and you're there? And we were there. It was cool.
It was cool.
It was cool, man.
Yeah, there's something to be said about Game 7. I think broadcasts want it. Like everybody always roots for Game 7, even though it's like the most stressful thing in the whole universe. Oh, it's so stressful, yeah. That I couldn't imagine. I can't imagine what that experience was like. I
know, and I hope one day for us we can experience it.
Well, we've been talking about this offline, but a lot of things that we talk about for this particular series is just everyone being able to be in the moment, because it was the 80s and you didn't have cell phones. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of talked about this, like that moment's never going to happen for us. Like no matter what, no matter how much me and you personally like to be disconnected for our phones, we're going to be with a group of people that are not disconnected to their phones. And it's not the same experience as it's going to be where everybody's experienced the exact same thing at the exact same time.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, I know if I were ever in that situation, my phone would be completely away. Mm-hmm. I would take in the moment. I know the professionals.
I feel like it still takes away from me if I turn and I see somebody on my phone. Yeah. It still takes it away from me because I'm like, I want to be experiencing this with you. And I feel like I'm not, because I'm upset that you're on your phone.
Yeah, but I don't think if you and I went to a game, we wouldn't be recording. I mean, anyone who does record, just to like make a disclaimer out there, you're kind of stupid. The professional cameramen are the ones who are going to get the best shot.
It's like the people recording fireworks. Like, come on.
How many times are you going to see a fireworks
so at home in your bed?
Okay, let's make a pact. If we're ever at like a monumental World Series game at Citi Field, we tell everyone, put your phones away.
Well, then we're not going to experience it because we're going to be screaming at people to put your phones away.
I am not going to allow myself to get upset about anything if that happens to me. I will be thoroughly happy. But I know what you mean.
I'm just pointing out the differences in this time and that time. And I don't see, as magical as that was, like, I don't think that could ever be recreated.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, I got you.
So the Mets won the World Series.
I just to let you know, I thought this was a little interesting little tidbit about Game 7 is there was a very heavy NYPD presence to border the field so that there wouldn't be a repeat.
Oh yeah, they had like the horses come out and they're
Yeah, so they made it impossible for fans to storm the field,
which I feel like is
checks out.
Warranted, yeah.
It's warranted, yeah. I think that was a very smart choice. I don't know why they didn't do it earlier, but I guess
maybe they didn't think.
You learn from your mistakes. Yeah. But yeah, Roscoe, he's the relief pitcher. He strikes out the last player on the Red Sox, and we win. Mm-hmm. We win the 1986 World Series.
Last time.
Yeah. And then I think just like a little fun little story. Ojeda and Hernandez overslept the day of the Mets parade. Mm-hmm. So they wake up late. They were supposed to meet at Shea and take a bus down to the city together. Instead, the two of them run through a crowd of people. At one point, they get body surfed. And they make it to, like their float, the car that they were supposed to be on. So they made it. But unfortunately for Dwight Gooden, he was not able to make the parade. He had made some... I don't think we went too deep into it. I think we stayed mainly on the stories of the actual games and them as players. But as individuals, a lot of them were kind of struggling through some things. Dwight Gooden was struggling from an addiction as a young new player. It's a lot to go through, and he actually kind of just went on like a bad binge that night before, and he didn't make it to the parade.
I think what the documentary does a good thing of is when they're interviewing these people who were on the 1986 Mets, you know, everyone has a story about their experience and what led them to this team that they felt was a family and how close they all were. Mm-hmm. But I also think one of the bad things about the documentary is they do point out all the addiction points and like the drug abuse and the domestic violence, like Darryl Strawberry and his wife. Yeah. But it all seems very glossed over. Like it also, and I think because they say this in the documentary where a lot of things are overlooked because they're winning, like, and that has to do with a lot of sports culture. Like, because this is a good player, we're gonna kind of turn our eye for things.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's similar, like, in that time, like, in the 80s, I think people turn the other cheek a lot.
I think it's still done today.
1,000%. And I don't think it's only in sports. I think it's with singers. I think it's with actors, directors. They tend to get so caught into like the feel good that they decide to
like
ignore
the work, anything that they're what they're a part of
instead of the personal life, which I think one thing though that I did appreciate about the documentary is that it didn't ignore all the bad stuff altogether.
No,
you know what I mean? It shed light on it, like this is an unfortunate reality of this player's personal life. But then that's, like, always the question, like, do you separate the artist from the person? Do you separate the player from the person? And that's something, like, we're always going to be wondering in pop culture and all that stuff. Not to end it on a sad note. Well, but actually, one thing I think we forgot to mention is the flight back from Houston.
Yeah.
During the national league championships.
What happened, except for that the plane was destroyed.
What happened on the plane?
About.
What I thought was funny about that plane ride back was that there was like, so allegedly there was an endless stream of alcohol, food fights were going on, drugs were going on.
Why would you do food fights? Why did you want anyone throwing food at you?
Anywhere from $5,000 to $150,000 in damages. It was not clear about how much.
I was going to say also with the documentary, you think there's reliable narrators, so they will flash to one person, like Keith Hernandez saying something, and then they'll flash to like Davey Johnson, like, but it's two different statements. It's like, it was like 10,000, and the other person's like, it was like 150,000. Like, that's what they do. So it's kind of, because I was thinking about this, I was going to ask you this, where these people remember so much, like, down to the out of, like, what happened. Yeah. And I'm like, I can't even tell you what I did 10 years ago. Like, if someone was documenting me on something, like, I was like, I could never think that much in detail. But then you have to realize
this is their livelihood.
It is their livelihood, but it's also their vision of the story. So it doesn't have to be 100% true.
Right. It's their perspective. Like, but I was even shocked when I got my uncle's testimonial about it all. Because, like, he remembered, like, he gave up, Ron Darling gave up some pitches. Like, he knew who got a home run. Like, he knew, you know what I mean?
I know, and that's crazy because we went to a playoff game. And I gotta tell you, I don't remember it. I remember being there, and I remember the energy of just being there is, insane. But I don't remember anything.
I
don't remember who was playing, like the pitchers. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at that age, my knowledge of baseball was at best remedial. Like I knew, I didn't know that much. I think if I went knowing the game how I know now, I think I might be a little bit better recalling it. But I think when you're such an expert of it, like everything just sort of gets crystallized and that moment lives forever in you. But you're right, there probably are some inaccuracies when it comes to their retelling of it. Yeah, but ultimately that plane ride kind of circles back to the idea of like we're gonna just kind of enjoy the moment of them being winners. And apparently, Davey Johnson ripped up the bill and was like, if you win the World Series, this bill on the plane won't even matter. Yeah. But yeah, it's like in some ways it's a controversial team, but it's also a controversial time. So like, I also just think it was probably a very magical moment to be at. Mm-hmm. And I would love to live that personally.
Okay, maybe one day.
Maybe one day. I don't know. I feel like this might be our year.
You said that last year.
But when I think about...
and the year before that. And the year before that.
Because I'm a Mets fan. That's what you got to do. It comes with the contract of being a Mets fan.
There's always next year.
That's
the motto of the Mets. Yeah.
But this year, right now, where we're standing, there is still this year. And it is a possibility.
Okay. All right.
Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.